And another thing we kind of weren't really happy with were small features with big impact. There were certain features in the game which kind of gave us a very hard time. Like, for example, the clients wanted to have a high score system because they wanted to have maybe competitions or something. So we implemented this high score system, but it doesn't really fit well with a puzzle game, because in a puzzle game, you have to be able to skip levels to use a password system, because you can't solve the whole game in one go. So you have to be able to quit and continue later on. And if you do that, then the levels you skipped with a password aren't, you get no points for them. And you have to kind of get this whole message across this very complicated system. And then to top things off, we didn't even bother to come up with a point system. We just sort the whole database of our high score, sorted after different values, like the time required, the moves made, and everything. And that's how we arrive at the order, which was a problem because we didn't have a single point value, and so we couldn't plug into APIs of a lot of portals. And also we received a lot of negative feedbacks from players because they lost passwords or whatever. I don't know. It was very messy. And another thing we were not really happy with was the kind of flexibility. We missed a lot of chances because it was 2005. Back then, ActionScript 1.0 was still kind of okay. And we were kind of used to this web development thing, so it was very messy. The kind of code was spread along frames and different objects. If you know Flash game development, it's really hard to kind of make changes once your project evolved into this state. So later on, a lot of companies approached us with they wanted to have custom versions, or they wanted to have versions where the old commercials were removed and another branding was introduced, and we weren't able to do that because the game got so complicated. And one last thing we weren't really happy with was the communication with the initial client. Like at the beginning, they were very professional. They gave us upfront payment for developing ideas. But soon they kind of started making demands, which we weren't really happy with. For example, they decided to write all the texts in the game because they had some kind of native English speaker in their company responsible for their texts. So we had to type every text in a document, send it over to them, and then this person would send us back the corrected version. The problem is that this person had no idea how the game works. And so, for example, we had this login screen where you have to log in first before you can play. And we have to explain why and where your name is used. And this person just cut everything down to just loading. And so a lot of players had a lot of problems understanding what they're supposed to do now, of course. And so after we released the game 3 years later, we kind of had to redo all the changes. Right, so now the results. Well, it's a small Flash game. We released this 1 year ago, and we had about 2.5 million views. Here's the curve, and so as you can see, in the first month we had a peak of 500,000 views per month. We had no advertising whatsoever. We decided not to use advertising just to measure how well it will spread on itself. Of course, we uploaded it to Congregate and Newgrounds, but that was about it. But even more than the numbers, we were really happy with the feedback we received. One particular feedback we were really happy with was the New York Times, who kind of discovered the game and introduced various games in an article, and they kind of commented on the polished gameplay. So here are the numbers. Considering how much feedback we got and kind of the traffic we got, the ad revenue was kind of disappointing for us, because it was only $1,000. Most of the money we received was from the initial client. And but we think it was maybe because we make so many mistakes during the release, and the whole project kind of got us thinking about ways how to develop games on our own, how to kind of monetize on this kind of traffic. And yes, and as far as the development costs goes, it was mainly 2 people working on it, me for programming and graphics, another person for doing this level design, and sometimes a third person came in for helping out with graphics and doing balancing stuff. The development time was about 4 weeks, but it's kind of hard to measure because it was spread out along a greater period of time. And as for the future, well, we were so unhappy with the inflexibility and that we missed so much opportunities that we kind of recently just decided to to make a new version in ActionScript 3.0. It's basically the same game, but it's much more flexible now. And we had already a customer very eager to have his own version of this game, which is Handelsblatt, which is a German, famous German newspaper, business newspaper. So you can play the game at www.co.de/exit. Please do so. It's an excellent game. And also you can read a lot of documents I wrote, a lot of articles I wrote at my blog, gamedesignreviews.blogspot.com, which is, it also includes a kind of an article which is a summary of what I just said. And also you can visit a portfolio of mine with a lot of projects I did at www.christian.de. Thanks for listening.